Okay, let's try this again. Can anybody hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay. I just don't know what's going on here. This one's live. I don't want to edit it, no. Shh. I'm about to execute something. Okay, we're live again, but I don't know if anybody can find us. What is this? Oh. And I don't know if anybody can hear me. So that's great. We should at least appear on the channel. That's for that particular. Yep, that's from earlier. And nobody could hear me then either. Great. Oh no. Yep, you could hear me then. Let's go to World Maker Books. Copy. Paste. Okay. Hopefully you can hear me. I don't know. I'm gonna switch over here to my account so that I can comment. Is that the one that's live now? Is that me? I don't know. Yep, that's me. Okay. Good. All right. Now, if you can hear me, I guess I could find out. You can hear me. Yep, you can hear me. Okay, good. Okay. Anyway, now that we've got all that done, I have no idea which microphone is working. And no idea what to do with the mess of cables over here on my desk. So for now, all right, let me tell everybody. All right, it's working. It's working. Please come find me. All right, let's see. Let's move that small, open up EarthSong again. Yeah, my computer's having issues. Faux show. Okay. All right. So, this is one more try. We had major technical difficulties this evening. One more try at the second live reading for EarthSong Overture by Mark Wandry. We'll be giving away a couple of copies of the book when we're all done. And this is World Maker Books. Yay! Hi, Dave. Thank you for your patience. I assume you can hear me because I can hear myself on the other screen. So everything should be okay. I have no idea which microphone is working. If I'm not loud enough, tell me so. I will do my best to do something to make it louder. Don't know what that's going to be at this point. You can hear me just fine. Excellent. Yay. All right. So now, without further ado, quite a few things have happened. We had our astronomer and her husband blown away at the beginning of the book as the city got destroyed, Portland, from the meteor hitting the Earth. And then we jumped to somewhere else, and our astronomer is now a customs broker and a former astronomer. And let's see, Mindy Patoy is actually the name of the main character, which I'm not sure we got in the first part. Anyway, something strange happened in Central Park last night. A strange piece of avant-garde art came down. Drug dealer and probably homeless guy showed up, saw this as it was happening, and now he's being held by the police. There's our friend Billy is there. He's a police officer, and he's been told to book this guy, and they can't figure out what to book him for. At any rate, that's where we were when we stopped last night, with Billy wondering what the hell is going on here. Okay, so forward from here. All right, it is now 8:32, so we'll read for about a half an hour. Thank you again for your patience. Here we go. Oh, this is just bullshit, Mindy moaned and pointed, rolling her eyes and spilling the bowl of popcorn. Jake nabbed it before more than a few kernels could spill. Dearest, it's just an episode of Star Trek, Jake said next to her on the couch. But it's supposed to be an alien world far from Earth, she persisted. Look at the sky. It's obviously Earth. Look, there's the Little Dipper. Jake sighed and got up to get more popcorn. She grumbled and watched the show through veiled eyes. People had accused her of ruining many good sci-fi shows by nitpicking. She'd always said that spending millions to make realistic aliens was wasted if you could look at the stars and see your backyard. The movie Stargate at least tried, she yelled toward the kitchen. Yes, dear, he said, trying not to sound patronizing, but not really succeeding. She looked at him askance as he returned to the cabin, popcorn in hand. Scott Bakula, what a hunk, she said under her breath. I heard that. Mindy chuckled and went back to watching the show. Later, after the episode, Jake reached for the remote as the DVR finished the playback and switched to live broadcast. Tonight at 10, a special development in New York City where police have cordoned off a large part of Central Park. Jake pointed the remote. Wait, Mindy said, and sat up for a better view. It was a short teaser for the later newscast, and there were few details. It showed a couple of seconds of a reporter standing near a line of police cars talking about an event from the night before, an event that was being kept secret while authorities investigated. The segment ended with a view of Central Park filled with trucks, trailers, and several helicopters. As soon as the news anchor promised more later, Mindy snatched the remote from Jake and backed the DVR up to the long view. Going frame by frame, she found what she was looking for. On the tail of one of the helicopters was the unmistakable NASA logo. What would NASA be doing? Yes, Yvonne, you are a stalker. What would NASA be doing there? Jake wondered aloud, voicing what Mindy was thinking. She handed him the remote, her mind elsewhere. You want to watch something else? Mindy shook her head. Jake settled on a sitcom they routinely watched. It was about a bunch of scientists with the everyday people they lived with. Mindy liked it because of the eclectic mix of pop culture and super nerd. Jake liked it because it was funny. After the show, the late news came on. Sensing she was interested, Jake switched to the channel that had aired the earlier teaser. The story was the lead. Sometime this morning, NYPD uniformed units encountered something highly unusual. As no additional details have been provided, interest in this story is intense. All requests for additional details from the NYPD have been directed to the FBI. Inquiries to Washington have not been answered at this time. Again, there were long lens views of the scene, which appeared to have been taken from an apartment overlooking the park. Large concrete barriers had been erected around the area, as well as booms housing powerful mercury vapor lights. Why the lights in the daytime? Jake wondered. Mindy shrugged. The reporter continued talking. There are reports that the initial responding NYPD officers are being detained by federal agents for questioning. We will be following this story as it develops. The long view panned a bit, and there was the helicopter with the NASA logo. This is Todd Bakerson reporting from... Mindy turned off the TV and leaned back on the couch, absently scratching her chin in a way Jake recognized as deep-thinking Mindy. You think a satellite or something else crashed there? He wondered. Mindy looked at him a moment later. Huh? He shook his head and repeated his question with a wry smile. Oh no, or rather, I doubt it. There would have been 1,000 cell phone videos. Little green men, she snorted, and he put an arm around her. I'm going to start dinner. I'll be there in a few minutes, she said. After he was gone, she spent some time on her tablet searching for more details. It paid little dividends. Drudge did mention that NASA had been sighted, the first confirmation of her observation. She eventually gave up and joined Jake in the kitchen to cook dinner. Her mind continued to work on the mystery. Lieutenant Billy Harper carried 2 styrofoam cups in one hand and a grease-stained bag in the other as he pushed the entrance button for 14th Precinct's interrogation room number 12 with his butt. Inside, Victor sat behind a table and continued to give details to the sketch artist. The artist looked up as Billy entered and gave him a woeful expression. Sorry, guys. I swear I ate all my chocolate espresso beans. The artist looked up as Billy entered and gave him a woeful expression. She'd been complaining for over an hour that this was a waste of time. But Billy was in charge and the artist was a civilian. Billy reminded her she was getting paid. Muggers or angels, it didn't really matter what she drew. Billy put a cup of coffee and the greasy bag down in front of Victor. Inside were a couple of double cheeseburgers and fries. Billy took one of the burgers and left the rest for him. Thanks, Lieutenant Harper, Victor said and dug into the food. The artist had a special 2-screen laptop, one of which folded out so Victor could see. The image of Victor's angel still looked pretty crude. Are you sure this is a legitimate use of my time? The artist asked. I'll sign the voucher, Jennifer, he assured her. She looked at him and shrugged. He'd had Victor in custody the entire day, moving him to the precinct 6 hours ago. They had his full deposition and the sketches of his angels. There was even one of the portal to heaven. Billy figured, why not? You know, Jennifer said without looking up, regardless of what voucher you're willing to sign, we're still going to both catch shit on this. This guy hasn't even been booked yet. She had a point. Working for the NYPD, she was familiar with procedures. If they didn't book him for something soon, they'd have to let him go. She's right, he told Victor, who polished off the burger and was working on the fries. I didn't yawn all day, guys. I don't know what it is. Billy took the remaining fries and pushed his untouched burger to the other man, who gratefully accepted it. But I want to finish this, Victor said, and gestured at the screen with his second burger. Some ketchup dripped on the screen, and Jennifer gave him a dark look, which went completely unnoticed. And I need to think. Hard to do that on the street. Billy shrugged. Unless we have something to book you on. Another shrug. I could try vagrancy, but it's only a Class C misdemeanor. Shit, we don't even write a ticket for that. What about this? Victor asked, reaching deep into the lower part of his pants pocket to produce his tiny bag of weed. Well, sure, Billy said, and made a note to report the uniformed units for a piss-poor pat-down. What if that had been a knife? The weed was a Class A misdemeanor that would get him held for arraignment at least. He wanted to give the amiable prophet of God a few days of good food and rest. That should fit the bill, he thought. Why give up the grass? You've gotten it this far. Shit, you'd probably get $500 for that in the lockup. I'm never doing drugs again, Victor said, and took a big bite of the burger. It's not right with God. Okay, sure. When your attorney asks, tell him you want to plead guilty to minor possession. He'll probably get you a plea deal, and you'll walk on a $100 fine. You got that? Just barely, Victor admitted. Yeah, right? I'm having to breathe heavy for you, yes. Billy reached into his pocket and put a 50 on the table. He wasn't even sure why he did it. Victor took it with a bemused look on his face. Why are you helping me, man? I can tell you think I'm a crazy dude. I don't know, Billy admitted. Maybe it just feels right. He turned to the artist. Jennifer, when you finish that, can you email me a copy? I don't see why not, she replied. You're paying for it after all. Billy got up and put a hand on Victor's shoulder. Oh, my gosh. Be careful. You should be out by tomorrow night, he said. Thank you, Lieutenant Harper. Billy left interrogation room number 12, figuring he'd just done enough good deeds for the rest of the year. I found an editing error. The pilot opened the cockpit door and found the source of his displeasure standing there, expensive-looking briefcase in hand and an expression of quiet distaste on his face. Behind him, passengers leaned out and looked curiously at the unusual scene. I assume there's a reason you couldn't wait to deplane at the terminal like everyone else, he said. Yes, the man said without looking at him. I can't have you wasting any more of my time. The pilot considered telling the man exactly what he thought of him, then reconsidered. And open it. The chief flight attendant came over and popped the release, lowering the door. Luckily for Section Director Mark Volant of the NSA, the plane he'd hopped from Dulles was one of the little ones with an integrated boarding ramp. The pilot had been unceremoniously ordered to park at the edge of the runway and discharge this particular passenger, an order he'd been quite unhappy about. I know it's not a boring book. I'm sorry, you guys. Have a nice day, Volant said as he headed out the door. Go fuck yourself, the captain responded with a smile. Volant's head spun around and the two glared at each other for a moment with the flight attendant standing by nervously. Finally, Volant laughed, shook his head, and went down the steep ladder. He'd noted the pilot's name and would pass it on to his assistant. Captain Vincent Foster had better have kept good tax records. Outside, a pair of FBI agents were waiting. 50 yards further, a Jet Ranger helicopter sat, engines hot and blades rotating. Agent Volant, an FBI agent asked. Yeah, we ready? Yes, sir. Follow us. A minute later, as the annoyed captain maneuvered his plane toward the terminal, the helicopter's engines roared and the machine rose into the sky, turning west from LaGuardia Airport toward the city. Here's the file, the agent in charge said, and handed Volant a red file folder sealed on all sides, bearing a yellow tape that read, Top Secret, SCI NOFORN CNWDI. He grunted, took the file, and pulled a holdout knife clipped to his holster to cut the fiber-impregnated tape. The file didn't contain many more details than he'd gotten when he walked into his office 6 hours earlier to find his director sitting behind his desk. What a surprise, Volant said, taking his hand off his gun. There are a lot of surprises this morning, the director said. Have you seen the news? Volant narrowed his eyes and thought, the thing in New York City? Bingo, the director said, and pointed his finger like it was a gun. Volant ran the news through his mind. He'd flagged it as a possible person of interest caught by a local, with the FBI now involved. Potential terrorist? Couldn't be anything at their level. Now he was reevaluating that conclusion. I figured you'd be here because of that Iranian satellite they're preparing to launch. I would have been, but because of New York City, I decided to farm that out. This is much more important. He tossed a folder onto Volant's desk and spun it around to face him, showing the NASA logo. Something to do with Uranus? Volant asked. Funny, the director said. The data was sent from the FBI to NASA. Look at it. Volant picked the file up and opened it. Interesting stuff if you were an astronomer. Okay, he said after a minute. I'll bite. What does an asteroid have to do with the FBI and NASA in Central Park? Well, that's what we need to know. I'd go myself, but I don't think that's wise at this point, so I'm sending you instead. Volant looked up from the file as the East River passed below him. It was easy to find Central Park. Sorry. There were at least 24 other helicopters circling it in the growing gloom. Sir, the pilot said over the intercom, the FBI is challenging our landing authority. They want us to land at the air terminal in Midtown and say they'll have a car waiting for you. Do they? Volant asked. He leaned forward and handed the man a card. On it was his name, position, and a code phrase. Give them my name and that code. Tell them we'll be landing in a few minutes. The pilot looked at the card, then glanced back at Volant before nodding and speaking into the boom mic. A moment later, he spoke again. We've been cleared to land, he said, and they began to descend. I know that, you twit, Volant grumbled. As they came around, Volant got his first look at the reason for his visit. The Greek-like structure didn't seem like much. He slid the door open and climbed out as the chopper settled on its skids. A senior FBI field officer ran up to them through the cordon of NYPD officers, acting as crowd control at the edge of the meadow where his helicopter had landed. Just who the hell do you think you are? The man demanded. Mark Volant, NSA section director for the northeastern United States, but you know that from the pilot and the code he sent. Who are you? Senior Field Officer Chris Benson, and I'm in charge of this site. Not anymore, Benson. The FBI man's veins stood out on his neck as he took in Volant's calm assurance. NSA takes precedence on any matter that has national security implications. Call your bureau chief. He will confirm the order from POTUS. I damn well will do just that, Benson snapped. Fine. In the meantime, can you have some of your men push back the cordon to the park edge and please take me to see this portal thing? In one swift motion, Volant had taken control of the site, given orders, and relegated the FBI to traffic duty and tour guiding. If he hadn't assumed control, the FBI would have walked all over him. It was their gung-ho nature. Laramie, take Director Volant to the object while I make a call. A young agent came up and shook Volant's hand, then gestured toward the concrete barriers blocking the public's view of the portal, as everyone was calling it. Volant nodded to Benson, who had an... All right, maybe we'll have to do this earlier next time. Okay, Volant nodded to Benson, Benson, who had an "I'm gonna fix this shit" look on his face. He knew the FBI man would make that call and would be even more pissed afterward. They passed through 2 more levels of security before reaching the concrete barriers. Volant made mental notes of what worked and what didn't. The FBI had done a passable job. The NYPD was the usual clusterfuck. On all 4 sides, the concrete barriers were staggered to make a pass-through while still blocking the line of sight. He moved through and saw the portal for the first time. "Well, shit," he said. "Will you look at that?" "Impressive, right?" the FBI agent asked. "Looks like the foundation of a fucking Greek restaurant," Volant said. "He dumped everything and flown here for this?" His boss had to be out of his fucking mind. "Step on the bottom step," the agent said, and made a sweeping gesture. Volant looked at him with suspicion, but had little choice. Dozens of FBI guys were looking at him. No doubt word had spread like wildfire that the NSA had arrived and was pushing the FBI out. He walked over and with no fanfare stepped up. Instantly, the circular portal appeared, floating over the dais. Strange symbols slid along its surface, morphed and randomly combined. At times they reminded him of Egyptian, Arabic, at times Chinese, and at still other times Hebrew. Around the perimeter were what looked like clear gems embedded in the dais. The portal ring seemed to be made of a glowing, milky white material that reminded him of the glass blocks used to make walls in basements. But what was most fascinating was the other side. Through the portal was a vision of a distant virgin wilderness. The trees were tall and strange. They weren't quite evergreens. Their leaves were wrong. The light was also different. It was like the lighting at a rave party. He realized the spectrum was different. The fucking report was right. It looked like another world. He noticed some people in spacesuits standing nearby. "What are they doing?" he asked the agent who'd been escorting him. "They're NASA techs," the man said. "They've been going over every square inch of this thing for hours." Volant looked at them and they stared back, eyes wide in surprise. "I think they were waiting to activate it until they were sure it was safe." Volant didn't have to be an egghead to know he'd been played by the FBI. Asshole. The NASA people recovered from their surprise and did the Ghostbuster thing, waving all kinds of apparatus at the portal, sniffing the air, taking samples, and babbling in their nearly foreign tongue. A couple of NASA guys without suits rolled up a big cart full of drawers with a pair of computers sitting on top. A balding man, older than the others, seemed to be orchestrating the show. Volant cleared his throat. No one took notice of him, so he climbed to the top step and walked between the technicians and the portal. "Excuse me, please," he said. "Who are you?" asked the man in charge. "NSA, who are you?" "Dr. George Osgood, NASA materials scientist and fan of all things ET. Needless to say," the man gestured at the portal, "today is a red-letter day." "What makes you so sure this thing is alien?" Volant asked. "Let me show you something, Mr. NSA. "You can call me Volant." "Okay," Dr. Osgood said. He opened a drawer, removed a power tool, then walked to the steps to where Volant waited. Some of the NASA techs started to hyperventilate, but he shooed them away. "Not even a blip. Stop your fussing. We need to get this man to understand, or they'll try to take this away, or worse." The techs relented, and he showed the tool to Volant. "This drill bit is made of cobalt-blended carbide," Dr. Osgood explained. "It's the hardest drill bit on the planet. They're about $12,000 each." Dr. Osgood sat on the top step, despite more mumblings from his people, and activated the power tool. It was a very high-end, very high-speed cordless drill. NASA liked the best. The drill reached a formidable speed as Dr. Osgood guided it with both hands to the top step. When the drill contacted the step, sparks and smoke began to fly. The milky white material around the drill's contact point shimmered slightly. After a few moments of drilling, he stopped and stood to allow Volant to inspect the results. "What do you think of that, Mr. Volant?" The drill bit was smoking, its tip ground off entirely. Volant bent to examine the surface. He swept away some residue with his hand, leaving no evidence of the drilling. "Interesting," Volant said. "Indeed, now feel the surface." Volant complied, placing his hand palm down on the step. It was perfectly smooth, almost like glass. It defied explanation. At the same time, though, it had an unquantifiable resistance to it. Logically, it should have had some give to it, but it didn't, and it was warm to the touch. "Now look at it. Just stare." Volant figured it couldn't hurt, so he did. There were patterns within the material, and he concluded he wasn't looking at a solid surface. Rather, this was somehow transparent and full of something. "What is inside this?" Volant asked. "Yes," Dr. Osgood crowed. "That is indeed the question. We don't know, but it could be some form of pure energy." "Oh, wouldn't that be dangerous?" Oh, without a doubt, the doctor agreed. It would be enough to atomize the better part of the entire New York metro area were it suddenly released. Bullet glanced at a technician drilling the dais, making sparks fly several yards. The drill bit broke with a pop, and the technician dropped it into a bin full of similarly broken bits. There didn't appear to be a mark where he had been drilling. Okay, Volant agreed finally. I'm willing to concede that this is possibly an alien artifact. What's the immediate danger? 0, I would say. But isn't this basically a huge bomb? Volant asked. You just said as much. He pointed as the tech resumed drilling. Is that wise? Osgood shrugged. That this is a bomb is not completely outside the realm of possibility, but I doubt it. If it is a bomb, why didn't they set it off? Considering what that much pure energy... Ooh. Considering what that much pure energy could do, you can't just run from it. So I say we study it and figure out what it's here for. Volant had a hard time arguing against the logic. He'd disarmed enough bombs that this one didn't scare him. As it had no visible timer, it didn't make him feel truly threatened, despite the NASA egghead's assurance that it was dangerous. Is it a radiation hazard? Should we evacuate the city? No, Dr. Osgood assured him. The radiation reading is less than that of a microwave oven. There's definitely some, but it's all non-ionizing. Boland's eyebrows moved together. It's not the really dangerous kind. Oh, gotcha. Well, we'll get a better read on the radiation when my analyzer comes in from Houston. It's the newest model, compact. They're going to load it on a C-130 tonight. They say it should fit. What's that for? Well, that thing you're standing on, unless I miss my guess, is leaking bosons. That sounds familiar. It should, even to you. Volant ignored the jibe. Bosons are elementary particles. Why is that a big deal? Because the only time we've ever observed them was in the picoseconds after an explosion inside a positron collider. Oh, and every time someone steps on that thing. Volant nodded and stepped quickly off the dais. He knew what bosons were. He watched the Discovery Channel. All right, there's a chapter break. Let's look at questions. Thank you again for being so patient. I did not save all the yawns up, I promise. Yeah, just a little editing error. Yeah, Mark probably already knows. Earlier might be better. Yeah, earlier might be better. Funny, he should say it that way. He says that like it might be a problem, right? Or you could read it. You're up. Yeah, ain't no question. No questions. All right, since Mark's in the chat, throw your questions in if you want him to answer them. Did I have a skip? What? Yeah, there's another file for today. I had major technical issues. It took me 25 minutes to get this stream going. So apologies for that. And it's almost 9 o'clock. We're going to read one more section, okay, guys? The New York City district lockups were often described as hell on earth. All forms of filthy human miscreants, from common pickpockets to child rapists to hardened murderers, moved through them each day, often preying on each other. Correctional officers tried to insulate the occasional semi-innocent thrust into this purgatory, lest they be chewed up and spit out in juicy pieces. Victor simply wanted to be left alone. He didn't fit the profile of the white-collar criminal or well-off Manhattanite, booked for too many traffic tickets or a crime of convenience, so he was tossed into the shark tank, as the officers called it. And as he wished, he was being largely left alone. He found a place on one of the many filth-stained benches and sat meditatively. The predators assessed him and saw a man with an inner light, or maybe a purpose. He didn't fit the bill of predator or prey. He was an unknown factor, so they looked for easier pickings. Hours passed as Victor considered the day's events. He dozed for a time, then awoke and thought some more. You all right there, son? Victor glanced up into the eyes of an older man. He was black like Victor, and his hair had long ago gone snowy white. He stared at Victor through the bars with interest. You need anything? I'm fine, Pops. How about yourself? Oh, couldn't be better, he said with a smile. You don't look like a guard, Victor said. Trustee from Rikers Island, he explained. I come out here most days to see you and offer some help. Guess you could say I'm here because I want to be. Then that makes two of us, Victor said. The older man cocked his head and looked at him in bemusement. Victor noticed the man was pushing a cart full of books and magazines. Say, Pops, you don't have a Bible, do you? I'd be half crazy to be in here without the good book, the man said. May I borrow one? Son, you can have one. He turned the cart around to reveal half a shelf of Bibles. They all had different covers, and most had a golden symbol of a pot with a flame on it and the words Gideon's International on the spine. They're worn, but the words are still true. He picked one that was in pretty good shape, took it from the stack, and passed it through the bars. Several people sitting next to Victor had been casually watching the exchange, and they chuckled when he took the book. A few openly scoffed, but a couple paid closer attention. "I'm getting out tomorrow. You can have it back then," Victor said, and began leafing through it. The pages had a delicate feel and were edged in gold leaf. It felt heavy in his hands. "You'll do no such thing. A Bible is a personal thing, and that one is yours now. Praise the Lord, son. I hope you find truth inside." "I already have," Victor said. He worked his hand through the bars and shook the old-timer's hand. It was warm and strong, and the skin was dry, like the pages of the book he held. "Good luck to you," the trustee said, and moved on down the line of lockups. Victor couldn't remember the last time he'd read a Bible. Was he 12 years old? Or 10? He couldn't recall. Most likely he'd been in school back in the Bronx. His mother used to have to catch him on Sunday mornings, drag him indoors, and clean him up to go to church. He'd hated sitting still and quiet while the old wild-eyed preacher went on and on about hellfire and damnation. Whatever. With almost a feeling of destiny, he started reading. The lighting wasn't the best, and for a time he struggled. Not only had it been years since he'd read the Bible, it had been years since he'd read anything more than a headline or a menu. After a while, his eyes started to hurt from the poor light. He saw a seat on the other side under a light fixture and went over to it. He was so absorbed in his studies, he didn't really notice the man sitting there taking up 1/3 of the bench. He just thought about how good the light was. "Excuse me," he said to the man, "can I sit here? The light is much better." "Yeah, it's better, motherfucker, because it's the best seat in the slam." Victor focused on the man, who was not much more than a boy. He was the same kind of person Victor avoided every day as he prowled the darker alleys of the city. His arms bulged with well-sculpted muscles. His head was shaved, and he had a tattoo running down the side of his head and onto his cheek, reminiscent of Mike Tyson's. The bandana around his neck and the tats on his hands spoke of his affiliation. Victor stepped back, realizing his error. "I didn't mean to bother you, brother. I was just doing some reading," he said, gesturing with the Bible. Quick as a snake, the kid snatched the book from Victor's hands and stood in front of him. He was only an inch taller than Victor's 6 feet, but he was much younger and had a body well-toned from hours in the gym. "Read? You stupid fuck, I'll fuck your shit up so bad you won't be able to read that toilet paper." Victor's face screwed up as he tried to understand what the kid meant by that. His brain wasn't firing on all cylinders. "Please, I need that book," he said, and reached for it. The kid checked the reach with a vicious crossbody chop to Victor's forearm that almost broke the bone. "Ow!" Victor yipped, pulling his arm back and stepping away. "I'm sorry," he said, massaging the arm and blinking back tears. "You bet you sorry, fucking punk," the tough kid said and advanced. "Please, I just want my book." "More than you want to breathe?" And with the same speed, steel-strong fingers clamped around Victor's throat. Victor gasped and tried to grab the hand. The kid backed him against the bars, and Victor's head banged against the steel, making lights pop behind his eyelids. One-handed, the punk pushed him up off the floor. Victor gasped for breath, his eyes bugging out of his head. The man's strength was unbelievable. "I saw an angel," Victor gurgled several times. "Angel?" the tough asked, then laughed before tightening his grip. "You's about to see an angel, you punk bitch." "Yo, put the man down," someone said. Victor heard it clearly. His oxygen-deprived brain was running on adrenaline, knowing he might be in his last seconds of life. "Fuck you," the tough said without looking. "I ain't gonna say it again," the other voice said, carefully enunciating each word. "Put the man down." "I said, fuck your cunt ass. You's next." The room was going dark when Victor suddenly found himself crumpled on the floor, gasping for breath. He felt his neck and found it tender but otherwise undamaged. As his vision returned, he could see his tormentor, feet dangling in the air, an arm around his throat, supported by another hand locking it in place. Now it was the tough kid's turn to have his eyes bug out and gasp for breath. Sorry, guys. Unlike the simple hold the kid used on Victor, the man holding him was using an expert chokehold. In a second, he was unconscious. Instead of dropping him, the man tightened his grip, arm muscles bulging. "Don't kill him," Victor croaked. "Why not?" the other man asked. He turned sideways, and Victor saw him for the first time. He was amazingly less than 6 feet tall. He was black, like almost everyone in this lockup, and didn't appear nearly as well-muscled as the man he was choking the life out of. His hair was cut with military precision, and a neatly trimmed Van Dyke beard fit his face perfectly. His clothes could best be described as working class. "Not on my account, don't," Victor said. Then I'll do it for the rest of humanity. He looked at the unconscious form, his heels dangling. This is a magnet on the rotting corpse of society. I'm a new prophet of God, and I don't want you to kill that kid. The man snorted. If you're a prophet, why didn't God save you? He did, Victor said, getting clumsily to his feet. He sent you to save me. The man's head jerked around, and he looked at Victor. Intelligent eyes for meaning and seemed to find it. With a grunt, he released the tough, who fell to the floor in a heap. Victor stumbled over and checked him. There was a pulse, and after a moment, the punk choked and started breathing again. Victor sighed and nodded. Thank you, he said. Don't thank me. Thank God, the man said. Why did you help me? Victor asked. The man looked confused. I don't know. Victor nodded. But it wasn't your God. Wasn't it? Victor asked, and looked for the Bible that had caused all the drama. Someone handed it to him. The man looked at Victor with reverence and gave him a little bow. Victor nodded and opened the book to where he'd been reading when the disturbance began. Give justice to the weak and fatherless, he read. Maintain the right of the afflicted and the destitute. Rescue the weak and the needy. Deliver them from the hands of the wicked. Does it really say that in there? The man asked. Victor found the verse. Psalms 82, he said. I bet you've seen people beat up in here before. A couple dozen times in the week I've been waiting for arraignment. But you came to my aid. Why? You don't know me. You don't care about me. No, he agreed. Then why? Because you were just wanting a place to read, and something in my head said to help you. Victor put a hand on his shoulder. The man visibly stiffened and started to turn away. Come read this book with me, Victor said. I've seen angels in the city. You've been chosen. I can't, he said. Why? Because I've done bad things. Because I'm a bad person. On the floor, the kid's eyes fluttered open. He looked around and up at his attacker. Rage began to appear on his face, and Victor's savior took a step toward him. Victor's fingers tightened, and he held back. The kid half crawled away, shaking his head and mumbling about bitches. Yet in your heart you know good, Victor said. You can still do good. The man turned toward him, and there were tears shining in his eyes. You really think God chose me? Victor looked at the other man. Really looked. He was huge, tough, and had probably been a soldier at some point. God doesn't do things by accident, he told the man. The Bible is full of divine moments where God puts people in others' paths so they can do his will. I needed help, and there you were. He reached out and put a hand on the other man's shoulder. The man jumped a little, as if Victor's touch was electric. I know you've been chosen, Victor said, and stared at him hard. The man's eyes widened at the inner strength he saw. Then Victor stepped forward and hugged him. He felt tears on his shoulder. Victor reached it up and patted his head. We're all bad people in the beginning, he said, and I think we're being offered a new path. Then I am yours, the man said, and stepped back, offering his hand. Prophet, I've followed stupid officers and dangerous politicians' orders to kill. It's high time I listen to someone I believe in. My name is Victor, he said, and shook. My name is Trefon, the man said, but my homies call me Duke. They walked over to the former seat of the now defeated cell warlord and sat. Everyone who'd gathered to watch the drama moved out of their way. No sooner had Victor opened the book, taking advantage of the better light, than several people approached. Can I learn about these angels? One man asked. Me too, another said. In minutes, 20 men were sitting on the floor in a semicircle, looking at Victor expectantly. I'm not much of a teacher, he complained. You seem fine to me, Duke said, and patted him affectionately on the shoulder. Victor sighed, nodded, and began reading aloud from Psalms, right where he'd left off reading the verse to Duke. They do not know, nor do they understand. They walk about in darkness. All the foundations of the earth are unstable. He glanced up to see the men watching him with wide eyes. Many more in the cell were listening too, but not approaching. Not yet, anyway. I said, he continued reading, you are gods, and all of you are children of the Most High. The words tore through him like a lightning bolt. All right, that is the end of that section, and since it's after 9 o'clock, I think we're going to stop here. Anybody have any questions to ask for Mark? Yeah, you did nail that scene. It was good. Yeah, please do, Dave. Like I said, they're all on Kindle Unlimited if you have KU, and that pays us just as good as you buying a print copy. So if you're like us and have limited space, KU pays us just as well as anything else. CKP, Chris Kennedy Publishing, does not do DRM. So if you want to download your book off of your Kindle onto your computer, you are free to do so. That way, Amazon can't reach out and take it away from you. Anyway, no, Mark, I don't think it needs any polishing. And thanks for the applause, Dave. If you liked this reading, please remember to click the thumbs up button and maybe even share us with some friends. You like forcing Mark to sign your books. Trust me, it's no forcing. He likes signing books. Please like, subscribe, and share. We're going to go through the whole book this way. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday. We'll keep trying 8 for a little while and see if the awning is just a nervous thing that fades away. Or if I'm just not taking time enough to breathe. I don't know. Yeah, signing a book is awesome. I actually got to sign a couple of copies of books that have my couple short stories in them. So it's pretty cool. Ooh, and I got to sign something the other day. I got to sign the back of one of my cards for a lady that bought one of my toys, which was cool. Anyway, that's all for tonight. I'm going to sign off. I think it is a breathing thing, Yvonne. I think I just need to remember to breathe more. Anyway, we're going to sign off tonight. We will see you on Saturday at 8. And spread the word, please. And hopefully we won't have such weird technical issues. See you all Saturday. Bye. Yes, and